Good morning, kids. So, in this chapter, we will be learning about the major landforms of Earth. In your last chapters, we have already studied about the landforms in brief, but in this chapter, I'll be explaining these landforms in detail. So, the major landforms, you can see the flow chart. It is written like plains, hills, mountains, plateaus, deserts, oceans, seas, islands, coastal plains. So, these all are the landforms. So, you can see the map I have drawn. Please ignore the drawing. I know it is a bit distorted, but yes, you can understand. I have mentioned all the landforms here on the map. See, you can see the Deccan Plateau, the desert area, the mountainous area, the seas and oceans and Gangetic plains. So, what are these landforms? So, if we have to talk about the landforms, children, landforms are different types of land with different natural features. Landforms are different types of lands with different natural features. And how are these landforms formed if we talk about? Landforms are formed because of two reasons: internal or external processes. Internal means below the earth's surface, if some pressure is building up or compression is going on, collision is taking place, so then the upliftment takes place. And external, if we talk about, suppose the heavy rainfall or the windstorm, then the soil erosion takes place. The top layer of the soil gets eroded. So that is how the soil erosion takes place. So this is what external factor is all about. Then internal factor always leads to the upliftment of the land. Upliftment or sinking, which forms the landforms. So if we have to talk about the plains in this chapter, there are three major landforms we'll be studying: plains, plateaus and mountains. So children, plains I have already taught. I'll be taking in a brief at last. The difficult most topic is the mountain. So if we have to talk about the mountain, we have hills, we have mountains, then we have ranges, and then we have cordillera. What are hills? Hills are the smaller mountains, smaller areas, smaller rays, that they are higher than the ground, but if it crosses 600 meters, then it becomes a mountain. It becomes a mountain. Mountains have sharp peaks. They are covered with snow. They have steep slopes. They are much cooler because they are at heights. And when we have range, what is range? When the chain of mountains is there, is called a range, like Himalayan range we have. And cordillera, if we have to talk about multiple ranges in a row, then it is a cordillera. Now, in this chapter, we will be learning about the different types of mountains. Different types of mountains. Basically, children, there are three major types of mountains. We have fold mountains, we have block mountains, we have volcanic mountains. So, if we have to talk about the fold mountains, we can bifurcate it into two parts, that young fold mountains and old fold mountains. That Himalayas, Andes, Rockies, they are the young fold mountains, which are building up through endogenic forces. Endogenic forces means the internal forces. I have just told you that internal forces leads to the upliftment or sinking. So upliftment is taking place. Once I will be teaching about the folds, you will get to know about it. Old mountains, if we have to talk about old fold mountains, are Aravali's. Aravali hills in Rajasthan. So that is old fold mountains. Now if we have to talk about the folds, majorly you can see in the flow chart, there are 7 major types of folds. 7 major types of folds. One is the symmetrical folds, which is like angles are equal at both the sides. You can see point number 1, fold number 1. Fold number 2 is angle may vary. At one side, angle of the mountain is different than the other. Although it is not mentioned in your NCERT book, but still it's always better to learn. Then if we have to talk about the third fold is monoclinal, where one side is perpendicular to the surface and one side is having an angle, different angle. Fourth fold, if we talk about, is the overfold mountain. Because of high compression, high collision and tensions internally the earth, this is the fold which is occurring as overfold mountain. When we have high compression, when you are pressing the book from both the sides so hard, then you can see the fold in the center of the page. You can try this experiment. Then we have isoclinal fold. Isoclinal fold, both the sides of the mountains are parallel to each other. You can see point number 5. It is parallel to each other. Whereas in recumbent fold, both the sides are parallel to the surface. How the mountain is to be? So now I request all my children to please find out different examples of these fold mountains. Recumbent fold mountain, is there any recumbent fold mountain or not? Please find it out. Then we have nape fold. Nape fold, when the fold is there but suddenly the cracks takes place due to the tension and compression, and then again that fold is started. So that is nape. So this is what fold is all about. How the fold mountains are becoming. These 7 are the reasons for that. If we have to talk about the next form of mountain, that is block mountain, we have to know the reason for that first. You can see this on the flow chart. Faulting is written. What is faulting? When the movement of crustal blocks parallel to each other horizontally, you can see these 2 crustal blocks I have made. So these 2 crustal blocks are moving, displacing from their position, and it is making the displacement. It is creating different landforms. So there are 4 major landforms which are occurring. One is Rift Valley, the Block Mountain, the Ramp Valley and Horst. I have given you the examples here. I will not go in detail in the video because in the NCERT you only have to study about in class 6th about the mountains. So let's not study about the valleys much. Horst and mountains, block mountains are the mountains when the central portion, you can see when the central portion is uplifted because of the internal movement, internal compression, and side blocks are standing still. This is what Horst and block mountains are all about. If you see Ramp Valley, please see in the flow chart, Ramp Valley when the central block is standing still and side blocks are uplifting. This is also the example of Himalayas, that Himalayas are uplifting upwards. So folds are making. So the third type of mountain is the volcanic mountains. Children, volcanic mountains is self-explanatory term. The mountains which are formed because of volcanic eruption. We have Fujiyama in Japan and Kilimanjaro in Africa, when certain cracks are developing and the lava is coming out from magma chambers through crater, when it is coming out and it is solidifying on the ground, building mounds. That is how the mountains are built. Volcanic mountains. There are 2 types of lava, children, although it is not again mentioned in NCERT class 6. But there is no harm knowing about the difference between 2 types of lavas, that is acidic lava and basic. Acidic lava is much thicker. It is not spreading much It is solidifying at one certain place, but it is much volcanic, volatile. It causes great impact, whereas basic lava is silent. It can spread easily, it is thin, but it is less volatile. It is silently erupting. But acidic lava is very, very harmful. Now if we have to talk about the next type of landform, that is plateau. Plateaus are called the tablelands. It is an elevated land above the ground, above the surrounding. It is a raised land. Now the children ask, ma'am, what is the difference between hills and plateaus? Both are the raised elevated lands higher than the ground. But hills have the pointed top. Hills have a fold, whereas plateaus are the tablelands. They have flat land on the top. So you have Deccan Plateau, Chota Nagpur Plateau is the extension of Deccan Plateau. We have Tibet Plateau. So there are multiple plateaus. You can see on the flow chart I have drawn a crater. Now crater is the small vent from where the lava is coming out. The eruption is taking place. And if that mouth is big enough, that wide enough, it becomes caldera. These plateau regions are very rich in minerals, mineral rich. You can see that Chota Nagpur Plateau is rich in coal, iron, manganese. So this is the reason lot of mining is taking place in these plateau regions. Then we have waterfalls. Yes, when the rivers are flowing on the plateaus and it is coming again on the plain surface, then it shows like a waterfall falling from the top. It shows like a waterfall. So there are two falls mentioned in your NCERT, the Jog Falls in Karnataka and Hundru Falls in Chota Nagpur Plateau. The beautiful falls. So that is the reason these plateaus become the tourist spots, the scenic spots. Now if we have to talk about the plains. Children, plains are the flat lands which are made by the deposition of the silt. I have explained it earlier. When the rivers are coming and getting all the waves including mud, sand, dust particles, rock particles. So this is forming a plain. So that Bihar area and these northern plains are very rich, fertile. Why fertile? Because it is full of silt. Good soil, good to grow crops. The quality of the soil is very, very good. So this is how plains are forming. It is absolutely thickly populated. What is thickly populated? The population is very high in the northern plain because it is good to survive with less difficult conditions. It is not much earthquake prone, it is not much volcano prone, not much floods are coming on the plains. So this is how these landforms are, this landform is absolutely good to stay. This is what the chapter was all about. The three major landforms we have studied. In the further chapters, we will be studying more about the earth and the landforms. Thank you, children.